first time Arya heard his voice, it came from the other side of the wall in the group therapy room. Low, careful, like every word had to be weighed before it left him. She was there because her mother made her go post-diagnosis, post-breakdown, post-too many sleepless nights. Arya had been labeled with severe depression and auditory hallucinations, but she called it the echo, the voice that lived in the back of her mind, whispering doubt, like gospel. Luca wasn't supposed to talk. He'd gone weeks without saying more than a sentence, diagnosed with selective mutism tied to trauma and anxiety. His silence was his shield. But that day, something cracked. He spoke just once about music, about how sound could feel like light, if you listened right. Arya looked up for the first time in months. She felt something stir. They didn't speak much at first. They sat near each other during art therapy, passed notes folded like origami birds, shared headphone cords during breaks. She played him old jazz records on her cracked phone. He showed her his sketches, cityscapes tangled with stars, people without faces but hands that held on too tight. Their connection grew in quiet, no declarations, just the safety of being near someone who didn't ask for explanations. One afternoon in January, Arya relapsed. The echo returned, louder, crueler. She skipped group, skipped meds, skipped meals. Luca waited 3 days before slipping a note under her door. "You don't scare me," the silence does. She opened the door. He didn't say anything, just stepped in, sat beside her on the floor, and turned on her favorite Miles Davis track. They didn't speak for an hour. Then she whispered, "I think I'm unraveling." He looked at her, eyes steady. "Then let's tie you back together." From that moment, they weren't just surviving, they were choosing each other. Slowly, carefully. In March, they were discharged, different places, different plans. Before she left, Luca handed her a small cassette recorder with one message inside. "When the world gets loud, play this." It's the sound of someone who stayed. Spring brought distance, but also letters, postcards, songs, emailed at midnight. They weren't in love the way movies show it. They were in love the way healing demands it. Real. Messy, brave. By summer, Arya moved to the city, not for him, but toward him. They met on the same therapy center steps where it all began. She smiled first. He spoke first. "You look like light," he said. And she answered, "You sound like home." And in that moment, they were both louder than the voices that once tried to bury them. The city was gray when Mara met Jonah. Wet leaves on the pavement, sky bruised with November. She was checking out of her third psychiatric hold in 2 years. Cradling a tote bag that held everything she owned, 2 notebooks, her mother's scarf, and the diagnosis stamped across her discharge papers like a curse, borderline personality disorder. Jonah was sitting in the waiting room, legs jittering, hoodie pulled tight around his shoulders. He wasn't there for Mara, he was waiting for his sister, but when Mara walked past him, he looked up and said quietly, "You made it out." She didn't smile, just paused. "Did I?" That night, she walked into the bookstore where he worked. She didn't know why. She just remembered his voice, not what he said, but the way it didn't shrink around her. He gave her a free cup of coffee from the employee pot. No questions, no pity, just space. Over time, they built a rhythm. She visited him on slow nights, sat in the back and scribbled poems on receipts. He'd shelved books and read her lines from the margins. Jonah had been diagnosed with OCD and generalized anxiety in college. He called it the loop. Mara called hers the cliff. She liked the way he never tried to fix her. He liked the way she told the truth, even when it was sharp. Some nights she was on fire, impulsive, radiant, electric. Some nights she was a hushed apology, all elbows and shaking hands. He stayed either way, but love for people like them is never just about warmth, it's about survival. One night in December, Mara vanished, no text, no note, just silence. Jonah searched the city, retraced all the places she'd once whispered felt safe. He found her at 2 a.m. on a train platform near Belmont, mascara streaked down her cheeks, sleeves pulled over trembling hands. "I wanted to run before I ruined it," she said. "You don't ruin things," he told her. "You just open locked rooms too fast." She sobbed into his chest for what felt like hours, and when he held her, she believed, just for a moment, that maybe she didn't have to keep disappearing to deserve love. They moved slowly after that gentle routine, safe words, windows cracked open, not slammed, therapy together on Wednesdays, tacos on Fridays, space on the days where breath was harder than speech. One rainy evening in April, Mara came home to find notes posted around the apartment, each stuck to a door. "This one's for when you feel unlovable. This one's for when you think you'll break me. This one's for the version of you that wants to stay." She opened the last door and found Jonah sitting on the floor, a ring box unopened beside him, not a proposal, just a promise. "I don't want to fix you," he said. "I just want to walk beside you through all the rooms we never locked." She knelt beside him and whispered, "Then stay even when the lights flicker." "I will," he said, "even in the dark." And they did not because it was easy, but because they knew what it meant to be found when the world said they weren't worth looking for. The sky had been low for days, pressing down on the city like a secret no one wanted to name. May stood at the edge of Laurelhurst Park with a cigarette she wouldn't smoke and a playlist she didn't have the heart to change. Her therapist had told her to get out more. But May lived with persistent depressive disorder, and most days, out felt like stepping off a ledge. Then he passed her twice, once jogging, once walking, as if he'd circled back on accident, tall, disheveled, a book of poetry in one hand, headphones dangling like vines. He glanced her way, hesitated, then said, "You look like someone who knows where the quiet lives." She blinked. Or maybe it's just living in me. His name was Julian. He was a former music teacher who now worked at a record store and talked like every sentence had once been a lyric. His bipolar disorder swung between symphonies and static, but he was honest about it. Too honest sometimes. May found it refreshing, terrifying, but refreshing. They started meeting at the same bench every Sunday. May would bring black coffee and silence. Julian brought stories about records that changed his life and manic episodes that almost took it. She never judged him. He never pitied her. One afternoon, he showed up late, eyes heavy, hands twitching. "I didn't sleep," he said. "The music in my head wouldn't stop. It kept getting louder." May reached out slowly, her hand resting over his. "Then let me sit with you in the quiet until it fades." He nodded, and they stayed there, still as the trees. Weeks passed. They found a rhythm, one not dictated by calendars but by stability. Some days she couldn't speak, some days he spoke too fast to breathe, but they learned each other's shadows. They built a world where relapses didn't mean rejection. Then came April. May stopped replying to text, canceled plans, vanished into herself like a wave, folding back into the ocean. Julian showed up at her door with a grocery bag and a record under his arm. She opened the door in silence. Her eyes were swollen, her room dim. "I didn't want to be seen like this," she whispered. "I didn't come to look at you," he said. "I came to be with you." He sat on the floor and played the record, something slow, warm, aching. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. In May, they stood by the waterfront. Julian took her hand and said, "You once said the sky felt heavy, but I think it only feels that way when you're holding it alone." May didn't cry. She smiled, soft, tired, real. "You're not here to fix me," she said.
"No," Julian answered. "I'm just here to remind you the sky was never yours to carry." And with that, they stood together watching the clouds move. The city breathed, and for once, the weight didn't win.